As we start our fourth day of fasting, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq and strength, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts our fast and all of our ibadah in this blessed month of Ramadan. We continue with our 40 hadith on attaining the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yesterday we covered the hadith in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wishes well for someone, He grants him the deen. He grants him the deen. This is a sure sign of the love that that Allah has for a person. So following that, the next hadith is chaptered on Babu Ayyu Dini Ahabbu Ilallahi Ta'ala. Which religion, the most beloved deen and religion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most high, which deen is that? And that is the way of exclusive devotion to Him, which is easy. So عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قيل لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أي الأديان أحب إلى الله قال الحنيفية السمحة رواه أحمد في مسنده. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or was asked, which mode of religious practice is the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the answer was, the way of exclusive devotion to Him, which is easy. This hadith, although we said that it was from Musnad Ahmad, Imam Bukhari actually brings it in his Sahih in a chapter heading, as well as in his Adab al-Mufrad, and many other scholars also brought this hadith. This is why the isnad of this hadith is actually Hasan. Now in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is mentioning three virtues that we can take benefit from. Number one is that this is the most beloved deen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That this is the most beloved deen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any person who wishes to attain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should exclusively practice upon such a type of deen, such a way of practice. Number one, what is it? Al-Hanifiyya. Al-Hanifiyya, this is exclusive devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Hanifiyya refers to when a person is far from polytheism, when a person is far away from shirk, and a person is ma'il towards the monotheism, the exclusive devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the quality of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, that inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifa, right? That Ibrahim alayhi salam was, equivalent to that of a nation, equivalent to that of a leader, right? Qanitan lillah, he was extremely devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was, subhanallah, he was far away from shirk, and he was, exclusively towards the singular worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the acknowledgement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the only one worthy of worship. And upon that, we have also been commanded, because this is the way of Islam. The way of Islam is monotheism. It is far away from kufr and shirk, right? That وَاتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. Allah has given us the command in the Quran that we should follow upon the millah of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, which was Al-Hanif, right? Al-Hanifiyya, which was exclusively, towards Tawheed. It was towards the monotheism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is free from all shirk. It is free from all types of blemishes, right? So a person is sincerely devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a person does not allow anything to interact with that belief, right? This is the type of pure monotheistic belief that a person has towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the second virtue that is mentioned here in this hadith. The second, or the third virtue that is mentioned, as-samha. As-samha means that which is easy, right? The aqaid of Islam, they're very clear. The beliefs and the creedal beliefs that we have, they're very clear. When it comes to the practice of the deen as well, it is also something that is very clear and simple and easy to follow, right? The deen obligates the devotion and the worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of obligatory worship and in the form of optional worship, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us that we should follow to the best of our ability, right? We should follow the best of our ability, right? إذا أمرتكم بشيء فأتوا منه ما استطعتم, right? That when you are commanded to do something, you approach it to the best of your ability, right? Even if you take the example in ibadat, in the salah, a person, if they are able to stand up, then they stand up and they pray. If they're not able to stand up, then they sit down and they pray, right? If they're not able to sit down, they lie down and they pray. So Islam accommodates for all of that. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الدِّينَ يُسْرٌ وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينُ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ فَسَدِّدُوا وَقَارِبُوا. Right? It is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the practice of the deen is something that is easy. Right? A person should not go out of their way to try to make the deen hard upon themselves, because then what will happen? It will become something that will be too much for that person. Right? There was 3 companions of the Prophet ﷺ, right? When they inquired about the worship of the Prophet ﷺ, they said, subhanAllah, how can we ever reach such a level? One of them said that I will never get married in my entire life. The other person said that I will fast all day and I will not break my fast. The third person said that I will stand in qiyam at night, all night, and I will not sleep. Right? The Prophet ﷺ called all 3 of them, and he explained to them that, look, I am the Nabi of Allah. I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than you do. However, I fast and I break my fast. I stand in qiyam and I also sleep. And I also get married and I fulfill my desires as well. So the practice of the Prophet ﷺ is in conjunction with the practice of the deen, which follows something that is logical. It follows something that accommodates for a person's individual circumstances, and it's not a level of practice where there's extremism on either side. One extreme is that a person tries to go overboard, right? This is not what the deen demands of the person, right? And the other is where a person becomes completely lax about the deen, right? They're like, oh, Allah is Ghafurur Rahim, Allah will forgive everything. No, that's not what we have to remain balanced. The way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way that He will love the most, the way that will earn us His love, right? The love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is where we remain sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We remain devoted, we remain practicing to the best of our ability, and this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us His love, and we will be able to have that connection with Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me first and all of us the tawfiq and the ability that we're able to do this. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر